Hi everyone, today's lesson is going to be continuing to look at how we build tension in a narrative, the exciting part, the bit just before we get to the main event of our story. So as you can see there, you of course need your English book, you will need a pen to write with, and if you've managed to print off the extract mentioned there, you'll need a highlighter so you can highlight it, and you need access to the extract from Bleak House, which is written by Charles Dickens. I will show the extract on the screen, so if you can't access it whilst watching this, don't worry too much, you can read it from this video. Okay, can you pause the video here then, nice and neatly in our books? Can you write down the date of completion? And our title today is Narrative Assessment: Building Tension. So pause it here and let's get that neatly in our books. Don't forget to underline it. First of all, I would like to start today's lesson by setting you a writing challenge. Now, you'll need to submit this via the assignment that I've already set on Teams, and of course, I will choose a winner. Now, your challenge is to write an extended paragraph, including the following items, characters and settings that I'm going to mention in a moment. Now, I've put the word subtly in bold there, and I'll explain what I mean by that in a moment. So, what do you need to include then? So, you need to include a violin, a young girl, a tattered book, a churchyard, some rain, a cloaked figure, an old glass jar, a candle, and a silver necklace. Now, what I mean by including this subtly is you are not allowed to start your paragraph with, there was a young girl holding a violin, a tattered book, and a candle standing in a churchyard in the rain. Because you've just included all of them in one go, and that is cheating. So, let's have a look at my example then, and we'll see if I managed to get all of these things, and we'll see how subtly I did it. A young girl, Jess, finished choir late that evening, and the sky was now inky black. She knew her way home, of course, so at first the mystery of the night did not faze her. As she trudged down the main road, her feet splashing lightly in small pools of water, she felt the light brush of burgeoning rain against her porcelain cheek. She hugged her coat tightly around her small frame and turned down a cobbled lane to take a well-known shortcut home. The eerie sound of a violin pierced the silence of the night as she approached an elderly man playing an oaken violin, reading the score sheet by candlelight. She smiled at him. His skin was unusually pale, but she thought no more of it as she hurried towards the churchyard. The familiar sound of the grate creaking at her touch was comforting, as she often cut through the churchyard in her rush to get home. Her grandmother was laid here, so she felt no threat from the place of the sleeping. The gravestones huddled before her, their aged skin bearing the cracks of time, with names worn away, no longer uttered upon the lips of loved ones. The rain was lashing now, biting at the end of her nose as she dashed across the cobbled maze between the headstones. Over the patter of the raindrops, she heard a groan to her left. She reeled around, fearful yet driven by curiosity. A cloaked figure, outlined by a silver thread woven by the moonlight, stood there faceless and still. The figure reached forward as if offering her something. In its claw-like hand there was an old glass jar containing a strange shape that Jess dared not identify. Just as Jess outstretched as if to take the jar, the claw released and dropped the jar, sending daggers of glass scattering across the cobbles, clinking like china as they did so. In the figure's other hand, it clutched a tattered book, bound by crimson leather and held together by golden thread. The figure began to whisper. Jess's legs were led as she was transfixed by the foul voice upon the air. Before Jess could move a muscle, the figure lunged forward and sent her crashing to the sodden ground, her breath knocked from her. She knew this was the end. The gate of the churchyard still creaks at a touch. Jess's grandmother still lies there in the churchyard, forgotten, almost forgotten amongst the sleeping, lies a silver necklace, engraved with an elegant J that sometimes glistens in the moonlight. Okay, so that's my example of the writing challenge. As you can see in blue bold, there are the things that I needed to include. So we've got a young girl, we've got some rain, a violin, we've got a candle, a churchyard, a cloaked figure, an old glass jar, a tattered book, and as I've already mentioned, a churchyard, and then a silver necklace. So what you need to do next is to pause the video here and go back to the page with the criteria of everything I asked you to include. Now, you can write in any genre you like, but you have to make sure you include all of the things on my list. Good luck. Okay, next then, we need to copy down this title, How is Tension Created in the Extract from Bleak House? And then we need to draw this table. Now, I would suggest you probably need 2, maybe 3 lines if you've got large handwriting for each section. As you can see, the column on the left can be a lot smaller than the one on the right. The one on the right is going to have lots of writing in it. So pause the video here and let's get this table really neatly copied into our books. Okay, we're going to have a look then, as was suggested by the title, how tension is created in this extract. Now think back to our previous lesson about the ways in which we can create tension. We're going to see if this extract uses them. We're also going to have a look at any adjectives maybe, any verbs that we think might make this a little bit tense. So if you've got the extract printed in front of you, maybe you'd like to highlight anything that you think creates tension. If not, just read along and think what you might be adding to your table when we've gone through it together. Fog everywhere. Fog above, fog below. Fog up the river where it flows among green aits and meadows. Fog down the river where it rolls slowly among the tears of shipping and the waterside pollutions of a great and dirty city. Fog on the Essex marshes, fog on the Kentish heights, fog creeping into houses, fogs lying out on the yards and hovering in the rigging of great ships, fog drooping on the gunwales and barges of small boats, fog in the eyes and throats of people who are wheezing by their firesides, fog in the stem and bowl of an afternoon pipe of captain's down in his close cabin, fog cruelly pinching the toes and fingers of his shivering little apprentice boy on deck. The raw afternoon at its rawest, and the dense fog at its densest, and the muddy streets are muddiest near that old building, crumbling, waiting to tumble. At the very heart of the fog sits the Lord High Chancellor in his High Court of Chancery. The fog makes everyone blind. A fog had never come this thick before. Many stared upon that morning and thought that it was night. Many who ventured out that day found themselves in unfamiliar places, as their paths were hidden mischievously by the mysterious mist. The saddest story of that day was a young fisherman's son who went to the docks to greet his father, but his father returned without him. Okay, there are lots of things then that I think make this tense. We're going to pick 5 because that's how many boxes we drew in our table. If you think you can add some more, then that's brilliant. You add as many as you think. So let's see what I highlighted then. So first of all, hopefully, obviously, it starts with 3 short sentences. And as we know, short sentences create tension. It makes things seem urgent, seem dramatic. We've talked before about how it creates this rhythm, a little bit like a heartbeat. So this extract starts with this really urgent, intense beat with these 3 short sentences in a row. Next then I highlighted fog creeping into houses. That word creeping, it sort of suggests sinister intentions. It wasn't strolling casually into them, it creeped into them, almost like it didn't want to be spotted or interrupted. We've also got that the fog was cruelly pinching the toes and fingers of this little apprentice boy. Obviously, the adverb cruelly obviously has very negative connotations. It almost personifies it, suggests that it has thought behind it. If it's doing it cruelly, it's doing it on purpose. And then pinching, obviously, that verb seems to personify the fog, so making this fog seem like it's this person with nefarious intentions coming in and causing pain cruelly to the people it comes across. We've then got the fog makes everyone blind. Now, of course, just that description that people are being blinded is tense. Obviously, taking away one of our senses as a human makes us more vulnerable. But we've got that sentence ending in an exclamation mark. And again, we looked at how exclamation marks make things, again, seem urgent. If it's used after speech, it's usually said loudly. So we've got that exclamative sentence. And I also highlighted the last phrase there, his father returned without him. And the punctuation at the end there, the ellipsis, is that cliffhanger, to use a sort of cliched phrase, that thing that leaves the writer wanting to read more. Now, there are lots of things that we could have highlighted. Personally, I felt the repetition of the noun fog throughout the whole thing. I haven't counted how many times it says fog, but it says it, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 times. And fog itself is often used in literature to be an ominous, a sense of foreboding that something isn't quite going to plan. And we'll look later at how weather can create tension as well. So those are the 5 that I picked out. You could have picked your own if you think you've got something better or something you can explain in a more detailed way. You use whatever you thought created tension. Let's turn to our table then. So now we need to fill in this table to show that we understand why something was tense. So in the left-hand side, we're going to put our quote from the text. Then on the right-hand side, we're going to explain exactly why it is tense by finishing the sentence, this is tense because. So my first example then, fog everywhere, fog above, fog below. So that's copied from the very first line. Then I've said, this is tense because. There are 3 short sentences in a row, which makes it seem urgent. It also creates a rhythm to the writing, almost like a heartbeat. So I've got my evidence from the text on the left, and then I've explained in my own words exactly why I thought that was tense. So pause the video here then. Can you fill in 4 more quotes with explanations? If you think you can do more than 4 more, then that's brilliant. You keep going and do as many as you can. So pause here and then play again when you've done this task. Okay, as I touched upon earlier then, when I mentioned fog, we can also use the weather and the natural surroundings to create tension in an extract. So I want you to look at this picture and think about, you don't need to write it down, which emotions you would associate with these images. So we've got here either a sunset or sunrise. I think this creates a peaceful feeling. I think the emotion might be calmness, or maybe I'm pensive, maybe I'm thinking about something. So I personally think this is quite a nice, pleasant emotion. Oh, then we've got a brewing storm over the sea. Now I would think this makes me feel a bit anxious, maybe makes me feel nervous. Again, this sense of foreboding that something is about to happen. Okay, maybe the storm has gone in your story and you're watching it roll away across the sea. Maybe the emotion's relief because the storm has now passed and is going out to sea. It would depend on the context of your writing. Okay, what emotion would we associate with this one then? I think that anger is associated with lightning and fury, maybe wrath, maybe it wants revenge. Okay, that's the emotions that I would associate with this. So let's have a look at this last picture then. What emotion would we associate with this? Now, maybe the emotion is confusion. Maybe if it's all white and you can't see where you're going, maybe you're a bit lost. So maybe you'd feel anxious and nervous. Maybe it's excitement. Maybe you're looking out of your window and there's snow everywhere and something exciting. You're pleased that it snowed. Again, it depends on the context of your description. So, can we copy down the side heading then, using the weather to create tension? And then copy down what it says underneath. So it says, a change in weather can be used as foreshadowing to indicate that a change in mood or atmosphere is about to take place. Now, you don't need to copy these examples down because you're about to write your own, but let's have a look what I mean. So, it says, the evening sun had now slipped behind the church and the coldness of the night began to envelop me. A dense fog rolled across the graveyard, glistening pearly white in the moonlight. So as we can see, the green at the start, then the evening sun, as we saw in one of the images with a potential sunset earlier, that had quite a calm emotion, quite still. It's the end of the day and everything's quite calm. But then in purple, we've got the sun going behind the church. We've got coldness coming in. And again, fog, which is this signal in literature that perhaps something is about to happen. So let's have a look at another example. A cool breeze made the dried autumn leaves roll and dance across a cobbled street. As I turned the corner, a gust of biting wind forced me to cling my coat closer to my chest. The leaves now gathered in a frenzy beneath my feet and grasped to my shins as I tried to make my way home. Okay, again, we started off with a nice cool breeze. It doesn't say cold, it says cool. That's usually a positive adjective. Then we've got the dried autumn leaves rolling and dancing. Again, this personification, and a dance tends to be quite happy across the cobbled street. But then, as they turn around the corner, that cool breeze changes to a biting wind. And now the leaves are in a frenzy. So they're not dancing and rolling, they're in a frenzy now. So we've got, again, that change in weather that's telling us as a reader that something's about to happen. It's building tension. So I would like you to write your own paragraph now where a change in the weather creates tension. So of course you need to start your paragraph with the weather being lovely and pleasant and happy and have this sort of positive imagery to begin, and then change to something more serious. So perhaps it's raining and you quite like the feel of the rain, and then suddenly that rain turns to sleet and that sleet turns to snow, and then you're in the middle of a snowstorm. Okay, so think about what weather you're going to start describing, perhaps 1 or 2 lines describing nice weather, and then move into your change of weather, your more serious change. Okay, we're going to leave that there for today. Then we've had a look at lots of ways that you build tension through punctuation, through adjective choices, through the weather. Don't forget to submit your writing competition into the assignment that I attached to this, and I will choose a winner once I've had them all in.